Okay, guys, sorry about that. Let's see if we can actually bring some light to the situation, which would actually kind of be great. Okay, there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and get into this, guys. Today's date, December 21st, 2019, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. Late edition. I'm your host, Will Buchanan, on How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the week's events and honestly try to make sense out of it all. Before I do get started, this is an adult podcast, which means things of adult nature may be seen and things of a graphic nature may be shown, so viewer discretion is advised. First and foremost, let me apologize, guys. No, this is, if you're looking at the clock right now, you're wondering why so late. Apologies. A lot of stuff usually happens, and I don't know why, but a lot of stuff usually happens around the Christmas era. Let's be around the Christmas season. We're 4 days away from St. Nick showing himself up in multiple houses, and today I'm no exception to the rule. Got in a car, got in a fight with the car, and right now the car has won. For now, but that's neither here nor there. We're gonna go ahead and get into it, guys, because if you've been following the news the same way I have, you've probably seen this come up.
In politics this week, history made. President Trump became just the third president in American history to be impeached. Now he is the first ever to face a Senate trial while running for re-election.
By the way, it doesn't really feel like we're being impeached, do you?
Whether or not it feels that way, impeachment is very real. Trump used a rally in Michigan to turn the tables on Democrats, warning of a political backlash against his rivals.
House Democrats have branded themselves with an eternal mark of shame, and it really is. It's a disgrace. Democrat lawmakers do not believe you have the right to select your own president.
As for the Democrats, a debate here in Los Angeles showcased a new leading candidate and became a pylon targeting Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
Billionaires in wine caves should not pick the next president of the United States.
Mayor, if you had won in Indiana, that would be one thing. You tried and you lost by 20 points.
Buttigieg forced on the defensive about his record and background.
If you want to talk about the capacity to win, try putting together a coalition to bring you back to office with 80% of the vote as a gay dude in Mike Pence's Indiana.
Impeachment, though, continues to overshadow the race.
We have to stop being obsessed over impeachment, which unfortunately strikes many Americans like a ball game where you know what the score is going to be.
Christmas will provide only the briefest respite from the campaign trail. With that Senate trial looming in January, candidates will spend as much time as they can in Iowa and New Hampshire before Washington calls them back. Rick.
So, yes, pretty much, if you've basically been under a rock, you have known by now that, yes, in the 243 years of our government, Trump is now the third president to be impeached, outside of President Andrew Johnson, of course, President Bill Clinton. This is why, first and foremost, let's say this was a long time coming. Let's just be honest. The Democrats in the House of Representatives did push forward with this, but let's be honest, Trump was dragged kicking and screaming the entire time. And what I've noticed here on social media, as well as I've noticed among everyone else discussing impeachment, but understands that they're not really understanding impeachment. This is why civics in schools is so freaking important. As I said before, like I said, during my week when the news, I did a little bit of news over Wednesday when this was released, I had simply explained what impeachment and how the impeachment process works. Impeachment is an indictment. That's really all that it is. The House can bring forward, of course, the House has to submit articles of impeachment to the Senate. The Senate then, which is actually, the Senate then is the actual trial. The Senate then actually holds a trial in which the Senate is the jury, and there is a Supreme Court justice that rules over it. Of course, 2/3 of the majority have to vote in order to remove the president from office or to acquit him. This is nothing new. I wish that I stress this so heavily because a lot of people right now are arguing over the abuse of power and obstruction of justice. There's no argument. I mean, let's be honest here. There is no argument. And honestly, I'm surprised that only 2 articles of impeachment were actually submitted. I mean, forget the fact that you just saw a president openly over transcript ask a foreign country to look into one of his political candidates. Not to mention the fact that he has hindered an investigation into himself as well as other people. He has ramrodded a Supreme Court justice and somehow replaced his somehow not only replaced his Attorney General, not once, but twice during the Mueller investigation. So, I mean, for us to even describe or discuss why that's occurring honestly makes no sense. Even more so, the Democrats had an impeachment inquiry, which really wasn't impeachment. They were actually litigating and actually looking over and inspecting to see if they wanted to impeach, which they finally did. So Trump making fun of it all really makes no sense because, let's be honest, he's pandering to his base. There's no way around it, above it. He thinks that it's one big joke because right now, he is actually enjoying not only the presidential immunity, but the ability. Because let's also be honest, where else have you seen a president ask the Supreme Court to step in about his taxes not being released? Think about that. Aside from that, yes, they did speak a little bit about the last presidential debate, which actually also did occur Thursday, which we'll go into a little bit later. But it's just for a short point, guys. Let's honestly. Because a lot of this is being said, they're already arguing over there's no evidence. There has to be evidence. Now, you can argue that from 6 ways from Sunday, because the whole point of a trial is to basically, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And at this point, there is a lot of reasonable doubt that can be casted on Trump. And it's amazing how he's acting, and people who are trying to defend him or trying to be centrist about this really doesn't make any sense because your argument is lacking. Now, of course, this will lead to a lot more going down the road, and as of right now, Pelosi is holding off on submitting those documents because, as Mitch McConnell had already pointed out on a previous podcast that I've done, he has already said that he is not going to be impartial, he is not going to be fair, his mind is already made up. And then the dagger of all the words, we are going to coordinate with the White House regarding this trial. It is, you know what? If Jeffrey Dahmer had this type of litigation control, he'd still be out if he was alive, or any other famous criminal. What other area could you possibly say in the U.S. where the defendant also is in league with the police? It's just hard to see that unless you're the police. But again, it amazes me so that he has this ability to turn around and sit there and say, well, I'm covered because they got me covered. And already that should be a screaming point. But also about screaming points, one thing I do want to point out that I love that gets pointed out is about the so-called conservatives being budget hawks. We want to curb spending. We want to invite more personal responsibility and all that bullshit. Well, it's funny that no one ever actually calls Republicans out on it because it's some interesting stuff.
So over 1 year ago, we started Reality Check on New Day. The very first topic we hit was GOP hypocrisy on the deficit. Remember, 10 years after the Tea Party mobilized protesters against the intergenerational theft of deficit and debt, well, it seems their new slogan should be, deficits don't matter unless a Democrat is president. Because the U.S. deficit is exploding during an economic expansion due to tax cuts and spending hikes under President Trump. It's getting worse. Now, during the debate over the Trump tax cut, we were told this over and over again.
The tax plan will pay for itself with economic growth.
Not so much. In fact, the deficit grew 27% in the first 10 months of this fiscal year to an astounding $866.8 billion. That's according to Trump's own Treasury Department. And that's not all. We're now on track to exceed a $1 trillion deficit, not by 2022, as originally predicted by the Congressional Budget Office, but in less than 2 months from now, with federal spending hitting a record $3.7 trillion. Now, fiscal conservatives on Capitol Hill had this response. Keep in mind, all this is happening during a record-breaking economic expansion, now in its 122nd month, roughly 3/4 of it under President Obama and 1/4 under President Trump. And that's why these deficits are so troubling. They shouldn't be growing at this stage of an economic expansion. But wait, you say. White House economic advisor Larry Kudlow told us last summer that the deficit is coming down, and it's coming down rapidly. Well, that wasn't true then, and it's even worse now. Kudlow, a classic fiscal conservative, now says the record $22 trillion national debt is not a huge problem at all. Cool. So I guess we can forget that Trump promised he'd eliminate the debt in 8 years because he's actually increased it 12% so far. But in fairness, he always did call himself the king of debt. Team Trump knows their re-election hopes depend on keeping the economy humming until after the election. And so President Trump's been repeatedly patting himself on the back for the stock market's rise. But our friends at CNN Business did some number crunching to put this record in perspective. Now, in his presidency to date, 645 trading days to be precise, Trump has seen the stock market rise 29%, which is pretty impressive. But that lags way behind the stock market growth under President Obama by this point in his presidency at 46%. Bush 41 has him beat at 36%. And Trump's tied with Bill Clinton and has done better than Reagan and W. But the stock market is the least of all worries. It's the merciless budget math that doesn't add up, with deficits exploding due to a giddy combination of tax cuts and spending hikes passed along partisan lines without any sense of long-term consequence. It brings to mind something Larry Kudlow once said.
We're getting another goofy deficit, blow the whole wide open, stupid short-term plan, which frankly, nobody, I don't even think anybody believes this stuff anymore outside of the White House.
And that's your reality check. All right, so over 1 year ago,
And I just realized I was on mute this entire time. Nice. I was on mute this entire time. That's wonderful. So, long story short, Trump basically being a fiscal hawk never worked out for anybody. And honestly, historically, Democratic presidents have always had better economies than conservative presidents. Please feel free to look that up, and I apologize for the last 3 minutes of audio that's probably been muted out, so I apologize for that. But anyway, like I said, switching gears, going into the Democratic debate that actually happened this Thursday. Let's be honest, they talked about a lot, but one poor candidate in person pretty much was the belle of the ball.
This time, only 7 candidates took the stage, and it was Mayor Pete Buttigieg who took much of the fire.
The last Democratic primary debate of the year began as predicted.
We need to restore the integrity of the presidency, of the office of the presidency.
Reacting to President Trump's impeachment.
If the president claims that he is so innocent, then why doesn't he have all the president's men testify?
And while impeaching the president is not an area where the candidates disagree, Andrew Yang struck a different tone.
We have to stop being obsessed over impeachment, which unfortunately strikes many Americans like a ball game where you know what the score is going to be, and start actually digging in and solving the problems that got Donald Trump elected in the first place.
The conversation took a sharp turn when it came to campaign financing, prompting this clash between Senator Elizabeth Warren and Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
The mayor just recently had a fundraiser that was held in a wine cave full of crystals and served $900 a bottle wine. Think about who comes to that. Billionaires in wine caves should not pick the next president of the United States.
Mr. Mayor, your response. You know, according to Forbes magazine, I am literally the only person on this stage who's not a millionaire or a billionaire. So if this is important, this is the problem with issuing purity tests you cannot yourself pass.
Buttigieg entered the debate with momentum in Iowa and New Hampshire, making him the prime target of the night. Senator Amy Klobuchar singled out Mayor Pete's only statewide race, a failed run for state treasurer.
You tried and you lost by 20 points.
Let's talk about how we win.
Excuse me.
Yang was able to lighten the mood during closing statements.
I know what you're thinking, America. How am I still on this stage with them?
Yang and Klobuchar benefited from the smallest stage yet, with only 7 candidates. They had considerably more speaking time during this debate, while former Vice President Joe Biden had significantly less.
This will be a key moment to see how Mayor Pete responds to the first time that he is getting serious questions about his record, clearly registering as a frontrunner. Joe Biden, less of a story in this debate, although he was able to talk about his ability to work with Republicans.
Meanwhile, overnight, Biden reacting to a tweet from Sarah Huckabee Sanders. The former White House press secretary seemed to mimic a stutter, using several I's before writing, "I have absolutely no idea what Biden is talking about." Sanders later clarified she wasn't making fun of anyone with a speech impediment, but Biden responded, "I've worked my whole life to overcome a stutter, and it's my great honor to mentor kids who have experienced the same. It's called empathy. Look it up."
And Huckabee Sanders has apologized.
Yeah, good old Sarah Huckabee Sanders, for some odd reason is still around. All right, so make sure I'm on mute that. Okay, you guys can hear me. Yeah, so about the Democratic debate, how can I put this in so many ways? Oh, dear God, how is Amy Klobuchar still there? Andrew Yang, yeah, he's got a good idea, but at the same time, I'm still surprised he's still there, which is an interesting joke he used. But yeah, basically where they were at, Buttigieg was going to be attacked, and I got to give it to the guy. He's still hanging in there. But honestly, even though we've knocked down the field that used to be huge, now down to 7, I feel like we're getting to the end of that American Idol top 5. But let's be honest, Warren, Sanders, I'll even give Buttigieg credit. I'll even give Yang credit. But it seems at this point, it's just those. Biden, I still am on the fence about Biden. Biden to me just seems like that kind of cat that just needs to go away. You've done a great job beside President Obama, but bruh, ride off into the sunset. You won. I don't think you're gonna beat Trump, and especially with you starting to have old man tendencies that just are kind of red flags. All I'm saying. Amy Klobuchar. I'll never be able to pronounce her name. I apologize, but she also needs to go. Again, she's like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker. It gets to a point to where you're not connecting with anyone. You're not speaking out on policies and things of that nature. So it's like, why are you here? I want to say that's so bad to her. And Yang, I'll give it to him. He's sticking in there. I mean, I wish he would really push. He's not really pushing anything as far as his freedom dividends plan, as far as wanting to bring in universal basic income and things of that nature. I really wish he would. I think it's a very astounding fact. But ultimately, it's going to get down to, I think, Warren and Sanders and possibly Buttigieg and possibly Yang if he chooses to do so. It's just going to be hard to say at this moment. But the simple fact of the matter that somehow Sarah Huckabee Sanders is still interjecting herself into stuff still amazes me. So just the simple fact of the matter is that, well, for all her times of not answering questions, she actually has an answer. Just kind of find that funny. But anyway, also going forward, of course, Trump again is trying to prevent his taxes from being put out, and he's going after his own people.
President Trump has now sued his longtime accounting firm and the New York District Attorney in an attempt to stop his tax returns from being released.
Kara Scannell joins us now with the details. Look, we knew that this was likely coming after Cy Vance's office subpoenaed Mazars for all of this information earlier this week.
Yeah, I mean, this is really not unexpected, especially when you look at the president's general approach to any subpoenas, whether it's from the House Democrats or from the New York District Attorney's Office, here to try to gain access to both the accounting records, his taxes, and his financial records. So this was not that unexpected. But they're suing here today, saying that this is an unconstitutional subpoena because, even though it's a grand jury subpoena coming from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, saying it's unconstitutional because you can't have a criminal investigation of a sitting president. And so they're asking the judge that will eventually get this case to throw it out and say that this has to be essentially put on pause until the president's out of office.
So this is a second effort to get to the accounting firm here. The House committee do it. That lawsuit by Trump was rejected, though it's on appeal. But this one has more likelihood of surviving, does it? Because it's a grand jury subpoena? Explain that.
Well, it's a very different path because the first one is, challenging the House and Congress's attempts to gain access to the president's records. This is part of a grand jury investigation, and grand jury material is secret material. It is protected. It's not likely to leak or become public, which is what the president's concern was mainly, and they argued this in court at the hearings, that Congress was going to make all of this public. Now, this is a different process. It's the criminal process. I mean, I think a lot of lawyers I've spoken to think that the grand jury would be entitled to this information, but it's not going to go without challenge. And here they found this area to say it's unconstitutional. And we'll ultimately see where a judge comes down on this, as part of this investigation, which is, at least as it's playing out so far, is looking into these hush money payments and whether the Trump organization had improperly recognized them in their business records.
Okay, so basically what you get off from that is that Trump is still trying to find a way to make sure his tax returns don't get released. And the argument that I want to pull from that is he keeps on saying the whole time, I am the president. I cannot be touched. I'm still orange. Well, he didn't say that, but in my mind, that's what I hear. But at the same time, yes, he will still use the presidential office as his own little immunity wand, and he'll keep saying hocus pocus until he can't say it no more. I have to say this because honestly, this gets said so many ways and so many in the wrong way. You can indict a sitting president. You can charge a sitting president. It is only an opinion. I keep on stressing this word. I have to stress this word because, like a lot of people, education has failed a lot of people. Opinion means it's not law. Just like they sit there and said, it's the opinion of the Justice Department that a sitting president should not be indicted. It does not mean that they can. That it doesn't mean that they're not prevented to. That means that they will. That's why that position exists. The Attorney General can indict the president because that's a part of his abilities. In the same sense that the House and the Senate can remove said president for impeachment if they choose to. There are checks and balances within this system. So at the same time, the reason why Trump is fighting so hard, I can only assume there is a prosecutor's dream sitting in his financial records. I can assume that the SEC, possibly the FBI, possibly most of the SEC that actually looks over stock markets and whatnot, are probably salivating at the mouth to way to get those. And honestly, because Trump even though right now he's considered a private citizen, it does not mean, because again, federal, they can't request it. But if it's state, you can request it. Again, this is where education is muy important, because a New York Attorney General can request the tax returns of a president because at the time they're not a private citizen. They can still go ahead and go for them. Matter of fact, the person of the budget, the Ways and Means committee and with House of Representatives can also request the financial records of any U.S. citizen, the president included. And we all know that Trump loves to litigate because he will litigate, he will throw lawyers at it, he will throw lawsuits at it and appeals at it until he can't anymore. And this is all it is. We know at this point, with the Supreme Court looking over his taxes, that is the last wall. The last wall before they realize that walls aren't effective. And it's only a matter of time before his taxes get released. And honestly, I think when he gets released, I think we're going to see that Simpsons ending that everybody keeps talking about. Because let's be honest, the Simpsons haven't been wrong yet. But speaking of Trump, and he's always looking for the very best people, I think it's time for this serial killer to go.
for Trump advisor Stephen Miller to be fired. This is for what they describe as his support for white nationalist and anti-immigrant rhetoric after emails showed that he was promoting those views and organizations allied with those views. The Trump administration claims that it is, in fact, Miller being subjected himself to anti-Semitism. I wonder what you think of this, especially as you've seen some of what are in these Miller emails.
Yeah, and I think everybody has the right to defend themselves before we get in this era of social media and all of that. You really want to be accurate if that in fact is the case. But if it is, there's just no place in the serious levels of government for anti-Semitic activities at any level in the government.
And how
so
would
that
you,
worries me a lot.
When you saw what's in these emails, I mean, so that's just, it's to you, it's very clear.
Well, I mean, when you read the email, yes, but and I have to tell you, I'm always suspect in this era with the ability to manipulate. You need to make sure it can't be just a social report on what's in an email anymore because people overreact. Because I think this is really serious. If he is actually saying those things and believes those things and is serving in the capacity he is in the White House, to me, that's a problem. You can't.
Oh, it's a problem. And I do, and you're right. Everybody, when it comes to the social media age, has the right to defend themselves. However, when you turn around and put up racist propaganda, nationalist propaganda, that you do attend white-only rallies and alt-right rallies, and you sit there and say that the Holocaust was really something that was brought upon themselves, yeah, I think you're a little bit of a racist. Possibly an asshole, but a little bit of a racist. And Stephen Miller, the man, Trump's right-hand man, as it seems, who seems to be Teflon at this point, has always shown these tendencies. But, you know, let's be honest. If you have a racist in your group, chances are you're a racist as well. And we all know how Trump feels about the blacks. So, again, it's this whole thing, like I say, it's like Celebrity Apprentice with the administration. I think that Stephen Miller's going to be on his way out. I even think Sleepy Ben Carlson's going to be on his way out. It's only a matter of time before we finally get down to two people and Donald Trump fires himself, not realizing that you really can't fire yourself as president. But again, why are we surprised? It's an administration full of racist, nationalist, and mostly assholes with white privilege. Yes, I said it. But moving right along, again, with Trump saying that he's the great businessman and that he's going to bring jobs back to America. Yeah, he says he's going to bring jobs back to the U.S. Well,
Detroit. And I want to ask you about U.S. Steel this morning announcing it's closing its Detroit steel mill. That's 1,500 workers that are going to be out of a job. AK Steel, just a little while ago, you know, sold for a fraction of its pre-Trump price. I mean, you guys instituted those steel tariffs, 25% last year, to try to avoid a scenario like this. And it feels like this is showing that that bet by the administration is not paying off. Does the administration need to change its strategy?
I think the bet's paying off beautifully. You have to understand the difference between a company like U.S. Steel, which is blast furnace oriented, and Nucor on the other end, which is doing very well, which is electric arc furnace, which uses recycled product to make scrap, basically, to make it steel. U.S. Steel did not adapt with the times. They're paying for it dearly. But if you go between down deeper into their statements, what they're doing is they're investing heavily in the industry to make the transition essentially to a more modern form of steel making. We are very bullish on the steel and aluminum industries because of the tariffs, and if they weren't in place, those industries would be in very bad shape right now. But
yes, if we didn't make those adjustments, other industries would be toast. But you know, hey, we put in steel tariffs. We sat there and put in steel tariffs at 25%, not understanding for the simple fact of the matter that some people are still going to go to other places. So what happened? U.S. Steel closed. At least closed the Detroit mill, which unfortunately is where 1,500 workers are now losing their jobs because there are people in higher positions who think they know better but fuck up gloriously, also known as management in any job you've been at. So it's amazing to me again. This is Trump, Mr. Tariff Man, putting out tariffs when usually not only with his war with China but with Mexico and pretty much anybody else that he doesn't like. And it's doing nothing for the country. I'm like, yeah, well, a lot of people say, but Will, the economy is booming. This is happening. Why are we, you can't stand say Trump's not doing anything. Trump's helping corporations, and corporations are padding their stocks, which makes our economy look great, but it's really looking weak. And especially if you're one of the steel workers, much like coal workers, when Trump said he would bring back the coal industry, and let's be honest, that's on life support, and they're about to pull the plug. U.S. Steel is not too far off from that because, again, it's hard to complete. It's hard to complete, but it's also hard to compete with manufacturing countries that can produce more at a lower rate, and you cannot tariff them out of existence. That's the problem that he's going to find out with China. You cannot out-tariff China when China pretty much has the advantage in pretty much everything. But he's going to try. God bless him. He's an idiot, but he's still going to try. But again, I feel it's hard to feel. Like I said, I feel sorry for all the 1,500 workers that are literally facing the consequences of somebody's actions who is still employed. That alone always betwixt my biscuits. But moving right along, guys. Former Kentucky Governor Michael Bevin is pretty much an idiot. And I said last week on the podcast that he basically, because he didn't get his way and the recount didn't go his way, he's no longer the governor of Kentucky. He decided to pardon some people that had some questionable intent. A few of their families that actually contributed to his campaign, which, that is the string among all these people he's let go. And you want to talk about some people that were fucked up? Here's what I'm talking about.
In office, the former governor of Kentucky issued hundreds of pardons of child rapists and convicted murderers among them. Just so you know, some of the details in this next report are disturbing. Here's our Polo Sandoval.
His single term as governor may be over, but Matt Bevin keeps drawing criticism about hundreds of pardons he issued just before leaving office last week. On Thursday, Bevin took to the airwaves defending his decision to pardon convicted child rapist Micah Schottel. His reason? His 9-year-old victim's hymen was, quote, intact.
This is perhaps more specific than people would want, but trust me, if you have been repeatedly sexually violated as a small child by an adult, there are going to be repercussions of that physically and medically. There was zero evidence of that.
In more of the ex-governor's interview with radio station WHAS, Bevin claimed an examination of the child yielded little physical evidence of rape.
This man was convicted purely on something that there's no corroboration for. And there is a system that should have caught this long before that. You should not be sent to jail based simply on the word and uncorroborated word of a single individual, especially when it is possible to verify that medically and physically, and there were no ability to do so.
But that shouldn't be the only factor, according to medical researchers. A 2012 study in Forensic Science International revealed physical signs of sex abuse should not be the only indication of an assault on a child. The survey found approximately 90% of child victims of abuse do not show evidence of physical damage. Prosecutors are also questioning the pardoning, including Kenton County Commonwealth Attorney Rob Sanders, who originally pursued the case against Schottel. In a statement, Sanders calls for a review of the former governor's actions. I would prefer a statewide investigation led by either federal law enforcement or a special prosecutor appointed by the Kentucky Attorney General. However, to my knowledge, that hasn't happened. Until then, I will be conducting my own investigation into the Schottel pardon. CNN reached out to Bevin and to Schottel's attorney for comment. Before this week's radio interview, Bevin posted statements on Twitter defending his pardons and commutations of sentences. Bevin said, the justice system isn't perfect, and I personally spent hundreds of hours reading every application and file of those who received a pardon. Polo Sandoval, CNN, New York.
Yes, I personally believe that he did not rape a 9-year-old. Okay, let's stop right here for a second. First of all, he's an asshole. There's no arguing that. The fact that he had the unbelegated gall to sit there and say that I believe this man was falsely accused because the 9-year-old's hymen was intact. I'm sorry. How does that compute? He sexually assaulted a 9-year-old. Again, it's amazing that the words he used was uncorroborated based on a single individual. I don't know about you, but again, I would look into everyone he's pardoned, because 9 times out of 10, money changed hands between them and his campaign. But again, that's just one of many. I mean, there's a man who literally decapitated his wife and left the body in the basement. There's an 18-year-old that literally killed his parents and left the bodies in the house while he went on vacation. There's multiple people that were having more serious and heinous crimes that were pardoned by a governor who literally sat there and tried to defend a man accused of raping a 9-year-old. You couldn't write this if you tried. But again, I can't blame the guy this is the prosecutor into that case for sitting there saying, yes, I believe every one of Matt Blevins' pardons needs to be reversed, because some truly irritable and dreadful people have been released out into the world, and at this point, the only people that have truly got screwed are the victims' families. So to hear that just made me go, if I was the parent of that 9-year-old, I know what I would do. It would not be proper. But I would say to those that harm the innocent, you will come to know me well. So, moving right along, guys. For all those that love vaping, you're 18. This story's gonna suck for you.
Congress is considering a measure to raise the minimum age to purchase tobacco to 21. That's part of an ongoing effort to keep young Americans from vaping. The bipartisan legislation would be included in a massive government spending bill expected to pass this week. It would apply to vape products, e-cigarettes, and traditional tobacco products. It comes amid growing concern about health risks linked to vaping. A new study finds people who use e-cigarettes are 30% more likely to develop chronic lung diseases than people who don't use them.
Oh yes, now you'll be 21 to buy tobacco products. For all you 18 years old people that were looking to have your first smoke or vape, hey, it sucks to be you, but again, I'm sorry, what point does it serve? We know vaping in my mind is no dangerous than cigarettes, no dangerous than smoking your fancy tobacco hookah. You are inhaling tobacco. Well, but Will, you're also inhaling everything else. You're inhaling carcinogens, you're inhaling aerosols and things of that nature, and that just is more dangerous on your lungs. No more dangerous than smoking a Cuban, in my opinion. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's just this whole thing about vaping, which I've noticed seems to be more of an attack on vaping and not actual cigarettes, because they, it's almost like cigarettes are accepted. They're not safe, but hey, light up. Cigars, not healthy, but hey, who could turn down a Cuban? So it amazes me so when it comes to the world of cigars and cigarettes and cigarellos for all those, Swisher Sweets for all you people. Doesn't seem to be anything that stops them from actually taking it. But vaping, oh, we must draw the line. We must draw a line because vaping didn't have an age limit. Yes, 16 and 17-year-olds were around here vaping. There really wasn't a law against it. But now, because of the deaths and whatnot, we must stop vaping. Well, vaping to me is in the same area as cigarettes and everything else. You know it has health risk. You accept the risk. We put the Surgeon General's warning on it, and we move the fuck along. That's how it should be. But again, I still find it funny that you have to wait 21 years to smoke and drink, but at 18 you can go to war. Yeah, but hey, priorities. But speaking of priorities, this other story, which I still find before we get to our good news segment, might as well be considered good news in itself. I don't know. I'll let y'all guys be the verdict on this one. I think it's pretty funny, actually.
Just days before Christmas, a surprising and stinging judgment of the president from Christianity Today, a leading evangelical publication. The editor calling for President Trump to be removed from office, saying the facts are unambiguous, arguing the president tried to coerce a foreign leader to harass and discredit Joe Biden, insisting his conduct is not only a violation of the Constitution, but profoundly immoral.
What we're talking about now is someone who is morally abusive in a dangerous way, and it's the scales don't work anymore, and it's time for him to leave the house, is what my view is.
But the president, who won 80% of the evangelical vote in 2016, firing back on Twitter, dismissing Christianity Today as a far-left magazine, adding no president has ever done what I have done for evangelicals or religion itself. Christianity Today was founded by the late Reverend Billy Graham, but his son Franklin today saying his father would not agree with their opinion piece, accusing the magazine of being used by the left, and revealing Billy Graham voted for President Trump because he believed he was the man for this hour in history for our nation.
So, Peter, just a few days after Speaker Pelosi was leading the vote to impeach the president, today she sends him an invitation.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Pelosi invited the president to deliver the State of the Union on February 4th. He has accepted. What's not clear tonight is whether we will be in the middle of an impeachment trial, because Pelosi so far has still not sent over to the Senate those articles of impeachment.
Okay, so let's cover two things in this last story. Number one, I never thought I'd see the day where I see a publication called Today's Christian would call for the removal of President Trump. You know, I'm a great Christian. I'm a great Christian. I'm the best Christian. I'm the best Christian I know. I know a scripture. I know all the scriptures. But he couldn't name one. He couldn't name one or a book of the Bible. But I find it funny that he relates himself as Christian because, you know, that's the celebrity thing to do. But it's funny that a publication out there calls the removal of Trump, and they make sense. I'm not saying all Christians are crazy. I'm just saying the more radical, extreme ones, those are the nut jobs. But there are a lot of people of the Christian faith that don't like Trump at all. And then to the simple point of the matter, it's just like, yes, he does need to be removed from office. And I'm just sitting there the whole time, come over, we have cookies. You know, join us. You know, you should fraternize more with us. We all speak the same language. But I find it interesting that, yes, a Christian magazine, which now is getting criticized by President Trump, which I'm not surprised about. But Franklin Graham, you know, Billy Graham's son, let's be honest about Billy Graham, who led a wonderful, wonderful congregation against the gays, lesbians, and LGBTQ of the previous times, and sat there and denounced anything but heterosexuality as a sin. Which I'm almost certain, well, let me not say that, but let's just say the Grahams are squeaky clean. That's all I'm saying. But anyway, just thought that was interesting to myself. But speaking of good news, let's go ahead and get into that, because like I said on How the Frack We Got Here, we do talk a lot about a lot of stories that can be doom, that can be gloom, just leave you with a bad feeling. But hey, it's the weekend. It's Christmas time. You've probably heard Mariah Carey, All I Want for Christmas Is You so many times, you damn near want to basically go deaf. Or at least that's just me. Because let's be honest, in a retail store or anywhere else on the radio, I'm sorry. Short rant. I am tired of Mariah Carey's All I Want for Christmas. You know what warms my heart? I'm going to be honest with you. You want to know what warms my heart on Christmas? Why don't we ever hear the Grinch? You know, you're a mean one, Mr. Grinch. Every kid knows that song. Or my personal favorite, why not The Temptations? Why not Luther? Why not Boys to Men? Why not? I know I'm speaking a lot of Motown hits, but let's be honest. Many of us who grew up in certain households had nothing but Motown playing during Christmas. And it was wonderful. It was beautiful. And let's be honest, you will still listen to The Temptations Silent Night, and everybody tries to do the bass line. So, I can't do it, but I'm not going to try. But again, it's the holiday season, and you hopefully you're able to spend it with your loved ones, and if not, spend it with the ones you're good with. And if you don't celebrate Christmas, Festivus for the rest of us. I'll let y'all figure out where that came from. But again, the stories I did want to show guys was this one particular. I always sit there and say about guys who win the lottery but still say they're going to work. I call bullshit on that. Well, one guy has actually proved me wrong. One construction worker who actually won $139 million of the lottery decided that he told his customers that he will continue to do their jobs for free as an early Christmas present. This guy literally had 8 jobs that he was being paid for, that when he won the lottery, he decided to go ahead and finish for free. Now, I don't know about y'all, but any guy, I could sit there and say, let me say this honestly, I could sit there and say, if I won the lottery, that I'm going to continue to work. I work in IT. I'm going to be honest with you. If tomorrow morning I woke up, and I don't know what the Powerball is, I think it's like 120, 140, something like that. So if I won the Powerball tomorrow, and then between tomorrow and next week, which would actually head into the new year. So between tomorrow and next week, let's say $140 million is in my bank account. it is going to be very, very, very difficult to convince myself to go back to work. It will. I'm not going to lie to you. I will be sitting the whole entire time saying, I know I said I was going to go to work, but my financial problems have been taken care of. And especially if I had jobs. Now, I will admit, now, of course, I do some things on the side, but, for those side jobs that I was doing for hustle money, I'll probably finish those. But my primary job? Shit, I could lie. I could tell the truth, but I'd be lying. But anyway, just thought that was funny. So, of course, the other story I have here, whoever is playing Mario around Salvation Army places, I wish y'all would do that to me. Apparently somewhere, and it's not in just one area, but multiple areas with Salvation Army, people are putting in gold coins. And I'm not talking your small little gold coins. No, we're talking about that South American gold. Gold that's actually worth about $1,500 to itself. And yet, for some odd reason, these coins are finding themselves in different Salvation Army areas across the globe. Which tells me either there is a conglomerate of people with a whole bunch of gold coins that decide to be cheerful and whatnot and give to an amazing cause, or there's one guy out there playing Secret Santa, and I'm hoping he's got on a Deadpool mask, dropping off coins in Salvation Army buckets. I'm pretty sure it's the first one because the second one would be a little bit off for some people. But again, it's always good to be able to give, and I'm going to be honest with you, I wish I could sit there and find a gold coin because I would probably lock that son of a bitch up and keep it and say I have one. But it's cool to see that kind of stuff because, like I said, it does restore my faith in humanity to the point to where, everything's not all bad, if it makes sense. And finally, our last story, I'm going to say Florida Man. And before usually we hear Florida Man, it's usually with something along the lines of what happened in Florida now. Well, in this case, this was actually good, and I actually did dig it.
Christmas gift for dozens of families. They found it in an unlikely spot, not under their trees, but in their mailboxes.
The inside says, "It is our honor and privilege to inform you that your past utility bill has been paid by Gulf Breeze Pools and Spas. You can rest easier this holiday season knowing that you have one less bill to pay."
Michael Esmond, veteran and business owner, took it upon himself to get a list of 36 utility accounts that were past due. He then paid the bill, $4,600.
I noticed on it that the due date was December 26th, the day after Christmas. And that made me think about maybe people that couldn't afford to pay their bill, that they might go without gas or water during the Christmas holidays.
The driving force, an experience from his past. It wasn't too long ago he found himself in the very same boat as these families.
Back in the 80s, I actually lived that, where I experienced a time that I had trouble paying bills, and we actually had the gas disconnected, and it happened to be one of the coldest winters we ever had in history, where the temperature actually got down to 6 degrees, and we didn't have any heat. We had ice on the windows on the inside of the house.
Esmond says his goals are simple. He hopes this gesture makes for a less stressful holiday season. He also wants to set an example, saying you can always find a way to give back.
I was hoping I could set a standard for companies that are about the size of mine, where we're not a Quint Studer or a Fred Levin, but we can still do something and give something back.
His generosity is already making an impact in their community.
It made me cry. It made me cry.
Joanne Oliver, Gulfbreeze's utility billing manager, says in her 20 years in customer service, this is a first.
For someone like him, a veteran, to come in and do some grand gesture was heartfelt for me.
Esmond says he's already thinking about how to spread the holiday cheer next year.
I would do it over again in a second. People ask me, well, you're going to do this next year? And my answer is, if I told everybody I was going to do it next year, nobody would pay their bill. So I'll figure out something for next year. It won't be this, but I'll figure out something.
This is the problem with issuing.
Nope, I'm not crying, you're crying. So, again, I'm almost convinced that Santa Claus exists, and honestly, he's a shapeshifter. I mean, like, dude, you can't knock that. If you knock that, something's truly wrong with you. And you probably heard my buddy Thomas say it. He believes in the the good of humanity and the hope that he has, because he's a Barry Allen fan, and if you've never seen The Flash, you should, because then you'll get Thomas's references and then he'll feel good about himself. Anyway, and as you can tell, he's probably right beside me as I'm saying this. So yes, I am being a little bit petty. But aside from that, it's pretty cool to see someone actually take it upon themselves and pay it forward. You know, if you have the ability to help somebody, then cool, and do it without actually looking for praise or thank you. I mean, like I always said it best, if I had the means to actually make a great impact, I'll be like Batman. You won't even know what I did, and I'm not going to talk about it. I will take that shit to my grave, and honestly, it won't be for anything more than just to help people. That's how it should be. And I'll even take the Barry Allen thing of this, just provide hope, because you never know, doing a small thing for someone literally can have a great impact on each other, and not just during the Christmas season, but all throughout the year. Imagine if we all start doing that, what better society we would be. But then again, we got Trump. So much for a good news segment. I just downed that one, but I apologize. So that's pretty much going to be it for this podcast, guys. Again, I do apologize for it being mucho late. I promise we'll be back on time next week as far as the post-Christmas things of that nature as we get to the end of the year. And, end of the year resolutions are always fun, and I think we'll probably do a few of those on the next show, especially on the podcast. So, speaking of Thomas, since he's right here, we're going to just basically do some shameless plugging. And before I do bring him on here to talk about To Be Determined, I do want to sit there and say, first and foremost, all, thank you. And I don't know why I closed my eyes when I was saying thank you and bowing, but thank you everybody that actually watches, likes, shares, subscribes, tells me about it. I take it all. That's what she said. I literally said, when I take it, I always wonder when I start doing this, would it be accepted? Would it be liked? Would people watch for a second? Will people look at me and go, hey, that's Howlin' Wolf, and then take it off? I didn't know. And I like the fact that people are still coming back to me and saying, like what you're doing, or maybe I didn't like this story, or maybe I didn't like this position on it, wish you could, take all of that. Good criticism, bad criticism, good or bad, because there's no such thing as good or bad criticism. It's just taking it and being constructive with it. But I love when people come and tell me about it, because I'm trying to make this show better and trying to make it retooled. And like I said, it's about bringing the best information that I can for you to make up your own mind. And that's what you should be doing from Jump Street. But then again, I just want to say thank you, because, like I said, for me, as long as, like I said, I kind of hope this does take over to where I can get away from my primary job and really get into my passion, which is this. But again, I just want to say thank you. Just be grateful about this. Now that I got that out of the way, this fool over here, who's been ever so quiet, has a show that he'll be doing in the next, probably about the next hour or so.
Yeah,
next hour or so, called To Be Determined. Now, usually I would go ahead and talk about his, but since he's here, he can do it. So, Thomas, you just gonna sit in the corner, or you gonna sit in the corner, or you gonna come over and do this?
This is wrong.
You said it's wrong, sir. This is practice.
It is practice.
Go ahead and tell him about To Be Determined.
Hey, everybody. My name's Thomas. I used to be a fluffy motherfucker.
As
now I'm like a semi-fit motherfucker.
Really?
And it's all about just being, like, reaching your best self in your zenith. You know what? Stop that shit. And just chase your zenith and realizing that everything is to be determined by you. So, check out today's podcast. It's going to be, like you said, within the next hour. So, just swing by my page, Thomas Reed, and come holler at me.
Literally, as he's flexing, as he's walking
I was not flexing.
But yes, his To Be Determined podcast, which you can see on his Facebook at Thomas Reed, and also on his YouTube page. The number 2, letter T, letter B, letter D. That is 2TBD, as in To Be Determined. Interesting name, because we had to beat YouTube's algorithm. And also, he's not the only cat that among the tail of bosses that actually has a podcast as well. I'll start off with Vaughn. You can find Vaughn on Facebook at A.Witherspoon, and of course, Big BZA podcast on YouTube. Has several podcasts of his own. He actually has his first one is the BSTs, which is a news podcast. That news could be video games, music, or trailers, as he loves to play. Interactive show just like mine. He also has Rhythmness, where you can reminisce over the rhythm, in which he goes over albums of the past and the present and grades to a 4-tier system. If you want to know what that 4-tier system is, you have to find Rhythmness to watch. You have to watch Rhythmness, watch and listen and learn from Rhythmness to find out. And also, he has Random as Fuck with Uncle Beezy. What is Random as Fuck? Random as Fuck is the pool of randomness we sometimes dip our toes into to take a break from life and have a chuckle. Some videos will make you think, some videos will make you cry, some videos will have you laughing. Don't believe me? Go to worldstarhiphop.com right now. Look up Burger King on fire. You will not be disappointed. I know I'm not, because I look it up to have a chuckle to make myself feel better every now and then. But again, all of his shows can be found under his Facebook. Again, that is Ada.Weatherspoon, and his Facebook usually has a calendar to let you know when all his podcasts will go live, either on YouTube, Facebook, or Mixer. Yes, we are branching out. My other brother from another mother is actually... My other brother from another mother, Trace Brown, King Eddie Wayne on Facebook, DJ King Eddie Wayne on YouTube, has several podcasts of his own. One of those podcasts is called The Bump Down. It is music, culture, knowledge, and numbers. He basically goes over chart work and what's how the underground understreets, and also brings up upcoming artists he's working for. If you are an artist that wants to work, that actually wants to work with Trace, or if you want your music to be played on Trace's Bump Down or Vaughn's Rhythm Nest, please reach out to Vaughn or Trace on Facebook, and they'll give you the details on how to upload your music to be heard. The only thing we ask is that you do bring that Dylon, and Dylon, because it's been hot fire, son. And we want you to spend that hot fire, son, because you don't know who be listening to that hot fire, son. And then you might be able to get that hot fire, son. And then we can sit there and say that we played your hot fire, they got you that hot fire, so you thought hot fire, so you are not that hot fire, son. That's all we saying. So, with that being said, like I said, bring your fire, because you never know who's listening. Also, his Bump Down does go into a Smoke with Truth, in which he does speak about things from an unorthodox position. I've said this many times about Trace. He literally speaks. He has an unorthodox way of thinking, but he is very intelligent. And the same fact of the matter is, if you take the time to listen, he takes time to listen to you, and you might learn something or just get a different way of view. Either way, the Smoke with Truth podcast, along with the Bump Down, can be seen from Trace's Facebook. That is King Eddie Wayne on Facebook, DJ King Eddie Wayne on YouTube. And also for myself, of course, How the Frack We Got Here is every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon. A little bit late today, I apologize. Like I said, with that political podcast, of course, a little bit later on the night, from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m., it'll be the Off Limits podcast, where nothing is off limits, in which we will tackle the subjects that nobody wants to tackle. And if I could hiccup, that'd be great. But we also go over what's considered modern civil conversations, as we're trying to make sure things are progressive moving forward. But again, we are going to talk about the subjects nobody wants to talk about off those podcasts every Saturday night from 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. Of course, Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Me and my compadre here, Thomas, do talk about blurry things on Get Bit. What I mean by blurry, we talk about sci-fi, we talk about comics, we talk about movies, we talk about anime, we talk about wrestling. Thomas actually has a very special segment that'll have this Sunday night, speaking from a mind of a black cosplayer. It should be interesting. But again, all those shows can be found under my Facebook. That is William Buchanan. I've been told I've been very easy to find on Facebook. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And also my YouTube pages, all of them. If you look up How the Frack We Got Here, Off Limits Podcast, and Get Bit, all those are active YouTube pages, so you can like, share, and subscribe from there. Speaking of like, share, and subscribe, give my buddy Wingnut Gaming a chance, as he likes to play first-person shooters like Apex Legends, Call of Duty, Battlefield 5, and Fortnite. His choice, not mine. He's also a very social cat that loves to promote new things. He is very proud of his beard, as far as being in beard competitions, as far as also going into gaming. He actually might enter an esports team. I'm not calling it. I'm thinking it'll probably be happening. It'll just be fun to watch. But anyway, he is a guy that just likes to be able to speak with others and make friends and basically just game along the way. So if you ever get a chance on Facebook, look up Wingnut Gaming, like, share, and subscribe from there. The last thing I got to say about How the Frack We Got Here is all about staying informed. The whole point of this idea podcast is to basically give readers and listeners and viewers the ability to really not take anything at face value, to really look beyond what's been told and just look for yourself, finding the evidence that actually proves that what you're seeing is right, and being able to show somebody else in hopes of encouraging them to do the same, because an informed community can make a lot better decisions than an uninformed one, because an uninformed one got us Trump. And that's honestly how the frack we got here. So, hope everybody has a wonderful holiday. You know what? Fuck this. Let's just go down the line. You can have a Merry Christmas. You can have a Happy Kwanzaa. You can have a Happy Hanukkah. You could have, well, we're not close to the Chinese New Year, but we're getting there. Pretty much, whatever you celebrate, whether it's Christmas, Festivus, or whatnot, enjoy it with your family and folks. Be safe, and that's all I ask. Thanks, guys, for watching. I've been Will. This has basically been How the Frack We Got Here for pre-Christmas, and I'm out.